And we're going to start the next talk by duo Malcolm and Steve. I realize Steve is, I guess, physicist and Malcolm social scientist so. And I found this talk very interesting, and I invited to this launch talk. And I'm going to start this talk now, and both are in online. Therefore, we have an opportunity to ask questions. With that, I'm going to play this talk recorded by them.
Hello there, my name is Steve. Thank you first of all for the opportunity to come and talk to you today at the conference. I have a natural science and physics background. My colleague here today with me, Malcolm, has a background of social science and the humanities. So together we cover both of those options. And if we do a screen share, you'll see the slides coming out. So our view of falsity in the natural science and the social science, humanities, that dichotomy in the falsity of view is our topic for today. And the first slide shows basically that we think interdisciplinary study covers all academic human thought, and not just the idea of any particular one, be it from the positivist side or the natural science side or the philosophical side. We think it covers all human thought. And I picked out number 4 on the conference list, which is what is money, which obviously involves economics. Now, there are 2 elements. First of all, the mathematical element, arithmetic, the queen of sciences, positive perspective, and the world is what it seems to be. So that would become positivist because it's the world as we see it. Economics also involves the human side. So there's a human sociological side, which is a human messiness. And views and opinions change over time, and different people have different views, different cultures, which is an interpretive perspective. Now, economics has that inbuilt dichotomy of including both of those. And we think it should not be seen as one or the other because it contains both. So it's an inbuilt dichotomy. There are other difficulties in economics. There's a fundamental difference between micro and macro. Microeconomics is our day-to-day budgets, and be it a company or an individual. Macroeconomics is more about the geopolitical involvement of companies and countries into different economic entities and their interrelations. So that's very different from microeconomics. So, and a second difference is, or difficulty, is a lack of understanding by the population at large, who don't seem to accept that maybe micro and macro are different. And also there seems to be some fundamental differences in understanding in there, but that there are additional difficulties that arise with economics. And we see a dangerous and unthinking appeal to the status quo in economics, as in other topics as well. And I've just paraphrased it there as this happens because it's always been done like this. And this is a real danger. And history is littered with examples, especially in positive thinking, where the status quo has been wrong. Surprisingly, it's a very positivist approach to say that the status quo is probably okay, whereas in fact it changes. And this latter difficulty haunts our whole subject, I think, of the dichotomy between physical and social sciences. Now, the concern over what is money can be generalized and becomes even more serious, because the human view of money can be seen as an analog for the human view of morality, and is perhaps increasingly becoming so. And do we as a species see the value of money as comparable to the value of human life? Will we as a species be prepared to contemplate the end of life on our planet in order to preserve individual wealth? So, if so, can our species survive when holding to this analogue? And this is touching on to global warming and the future of humanity on the planet. But nevertheless, I think is relevant to this basic dichotomy. We believe that economics echoes two ways of viewing the world, which we'll come back to, which is science versus art, which we've called wars. There's a scientific view, which is the world if seen as it is, and then an artistic world, which is more human and interpretist. So some artists might believe that they have a monopoly of creativity, which we believe they do not. Social scientists, humanities scholars and natural scientists are all equally creative. It comes in different ways, but it's nevertheless, we believe, a commonality between two groups of people, and therefore a false dichotomy. So finally, in this part, we've got quotations regarding Fields medalists. This is the equivalent, as you may know, of a Nobel Prize in mathematics. So they're luminary mathematicians who make statements that could equally apply to artists or to scientists. Now, the interesting thing is that the creativity comes out in very much in what they say within the subject of mathematics, which is often seen as a non-artistic endeavor. So Akshay Venkatesh, who was a Fields Medal winner in 2018, was a colleague at Columbia University, Michael Harris, said, his ideas are a vast expansion of the imagination. Now that tends to be a non-scientific view of humanity. And even more perhaps relevant is Kausha Burka, who was a Fields Medal winner in 2018, said, you get ideas from someone, from somewhere, and you create something, you contribute something new and create more beautiful things, which would be very much the intention, the aim of an artistic person. So we believe that this puts together in this way the two different threads of positivism and interpretism. So thank you for that. And now over to Malcolm.
Thanks, Steve. Interpretivism has three major criticisms of positivism. Number one, scientific beliefs have changed over history with extra evidence. Following the opinion of Copernicus and others, the opinion of the Earth being the center of the universe to instead being one planet going around a sun, that opinion changed. And scientists are proud that their opinions will change over time with new evidence and so on. But an implication long term is that any of their hypotheses may be considered false, even the laws of thermodynamics. Two, in science, it is a dogma that a cause will lead to an effect. It's fundamental to scientific ideology and also methodology. But philosophers, including Hume, have argued that this is false. We cannot be certain that one event will cause a later event because it had before. Three, the big one. We can only perceive through our human anatomical, physiological, psychological, and cultural apparatus. We cannot see the universe as it is, but only as we are. The objectivity that natural science strives for is in principle unobtainable, and we'll return to that. The subjectivity of art may help us. Social sciences, by the way, are on a spectrum. Going up this hierarchy vertically, notice in this hierarchy you have natural and social sciences mixed. Going up this vertically, they become increasingly objective. However, also going up it, subjectively, they have an increasingly inferior overview, philosophical overview of their world. Humans love binary perception. It is or it isn't, yes or no. This may be connected with their biological nature, with their long apprenticeship in the African savannah, where it was vital, a matter of life or death, as to whether or not in that bush there was a lion who might eat you. Humans can summitize, that is to judge instantly up to about 7 items, so 2 is easy for them. But this limit does not apply to machines. We'll return to that. Humans can recognize patterns or irregularities, and they love doing so, but sometimes they do so even if there are none. And in extreme form, this is a disease, apophenia. The philosopher Nagel has argued that we cannot know what it is like to be a bat. The reason is that bats have an echolocation sense that humans lack. Similarly, we cannot understand the world of the eel, because eels have an electromagnetic sense. Similarly, with a spider, they have an exquisite sense of vibration. Compared with spiders, humans are vibration pygmies. Compared with the butterfly, humans are inferior. The butterfly can instantly recognize whether a solution contains sugar or not, whereas humans cannot tell the difference sometimes between sugar and a sweet solution such as saccharin. Butterflies, by the way, taste with pads on their feet. Considering a machine, like interconnected machines of computers around the world, it can, in its silicon fashion, judge trillions of items of one sort or another, whereas humans cannot, and the web can put humans in contact one with another, many, many humans, such as in this hybrid conference. An artist, a poet, has put all this far more eloquently than I could. I'm indebted to the poet Kemp for this. Humans perceive by tapping with their 5-sensed cane of mind, but really are worse than blind. But philosophers do try. These 2 views of the world then, of positivism and interpretivism, note these are philosophers, these are philosophies. There are no right or wrong answers, just a better sort of question. That's all that philosophers can hope to offer us. So these are 2 orientations or paradigms or Weltanschauungen, views of the world as a whole. A philosopher, Martin Hollis, at the University of East Anglia, offered a particular view which would help to dissolve the differences between arts and sciences by looking through a particular 4-paned window. In his view of the universe, we have 2 axes. This is the universe. On this vertical axis, we have emotion. No emotion, much emotion. On this axis, horizontal, we have complexity, the one, the many. The many are the wholes, the gestalts. Let us populate it with a Hollis window. Bottom left, we have an agent, simple, non-emotional, such as iron. Let's make the iron more complex. Let us take this agent and react it with a reagent, with oxygen, to form rust in a system more complex, but still emotionally simple. Emotionally more difficult is if we take that iron, put it into a nail, and we sit on that nail, we will yelp. And that is emotional. We are actors on a stage. Let's make it more complex. We put the iron into a bridge which collapses, hundreds of people die. That is a tragic sort of game. Well, where are science and art in this window? Science, social science, art. Science, natural science, social science, art. Economics is a social science. Well, how can we judge whether the universe is deterministic or positivist with natural scientific notions, including the laws of thermodynamics, if no humans are there, without human self-awareness? Who are we going to ask? In the absence of a universally recognized higher authority, ask another sentient, self-aware species. That at least would be democratic. A popular choice is the octopus. We know the octopus is self-aware. We know it has a wider bandwidth for communication than humans have. The octopuses can communicate by colors, by flowing patterns over the whole of their body. Steve and I are very aware that communicating philosophy with the octopus would be very, very demanding. We need some help from some sort of Rosetta Stone, and perhaps the future AI can help us with it. So we have a collaborator here, a scientific collaborator. Unfortunately, we eat octopuses, and that is unhelpful for collaboration. At the moment, to recap, we know of only one tribe of humans who consider the universe positivist. Supposing we found that octopuses did too, that would be not an event, to use the quip of the statisticians. It would then be merely a coincidence. Supposing we need another species, so let's ask another. Let's ask dolphins. Oh dear, dolphins. We also eat dolphins, but let's ask them anyway. Supposing they agreed, that then would be a trend. Not enough species. We need a total of 6 species. So let's add chimpanzees and AI and an extraterrestrial, supposing that they all agreed. If all 6 preferred a positivist universe, the simple non-parametric sign test with a confidence level of P of up to or equal to 0.05, that the preference for positivism was connected with random chance. Well, we could put that less formally and say that most shared a positivist worldview. The answer of either yes or no to these questions has immense implications. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Malcolm. Yeah, well, we finally just summarize rather what we've been saying, that we have 2 distinct routes to follow. We could go the positivism way, that the world is what it seems to be, and interpretism, human messiness. If other species believe in a positive universe, it would mean that the opinion of positive humans was the norm. That would match the opinion of biology and other sciences, where they progressively found over time that humans were less and less special and more akin to other sentient, self-aware species. So that would be especially challenging to interpretivists, and natural scientists would be reassured. Artists would be dismayed. Now, the alternative is that if other species believe in an interpretivist universe, our present theoretical deterministic model of the universe, including the laws of thermodynamics, would be challenged. And if the natives of one of these groups presume that their universe could only be interpreted, interpretivists would be reassured, but natural scientists would be dismayed. So the collaboration would at least tell us a preference of the self-aware sentient species. The difficulty would be that, as far as we're concerned, that would be a false dichotomy. We've said from the beginning that we think that the 2 are combined in a subtle way, and that neither an entirely positivist universe or an entirely interpretivist universe seems to exist. But nevertheless, we would know from the other interpretations by other species what the democratic result would be, as Malcolm has described. It wouldn't tell us, of course, whether their preference was connected with their talent or their ignorance, and we would have to make another judgment about that. So thank you very much indeed for that. We look forward to hearing your questions you may have about what we've said. Thank you.
Uh, that's great. And we are lucky that both the presenter are in the room. Therefore, please feel free to unmute yourself and continue this discussion. We have some time to discuss this. And with that, I would like to open this floor for question and discussion about the presentation by Steve and Malcolm. Steve, I'm just curious, like how two guys met and I started collaboration working on these interdisciplinary topics.
Well, Steve and I met, in fact, at a local astronomical society. We're both amateur astronomers. And as Steve mentioned, he's a physicist. I'm a retired pharmacist. I have a background both in natural science, but later on I started to study social sciences, especially sociology. We started to debate various matters and started to collaborate on the things such as, for example, the Fermi paradox. So we're used to publishing things together, and this seemed a really interesting conference to be involved with, in that the laws of thermodynamics are a sort of a flag bearer or clarion call for natural sciences and for the positivist view of the universe. So we have been genuinely attempting to collaborate. So you have one natural scientist, one social scientist, who have worked together on this, and this is where we got to. Anything to add, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. One thing that seems a shame to us is that young people are forced, depending on where they live perhaps, but they're nevertheless forced to choose between social sciences and physical sciences at quite a young age, really. And that may be more of a British trend, or maybe an American trend as well now, but that's an American friend recently, today in fact, said that she was rather displeased with that sort of thing. So a trend of trying to bring the two together, I think, is a helpful option.
And I particularly like the Hollis grid, in that it is an attempt to integrate these two worldviews, and it fits in with the last speaker and free choices and teleology, in that it attempts to assimilate all of these, if you like, to swallow them whole and form an opinion on them. But we need to be careful in that we're talking here about matters of philosophy, so there's no right, no wrong answer, just a better sort of question. We're particularly intrigued that, supposing we do eventually come to be able to ask this question, and we get answers, that it's really in all sorts of ways problematic, in that maybe it might even be sensible to have some kind of interspecies ethical committee before we ask the questions, because it could damage the peace of mind of one or more entire species, including possibly our own. And on a more trivial level, it would be whether you like to be one of a crowd and the comfort of other people agree with you, or whether you're traveling strange oceans of thought alone, which is a lonely place to be.
One point that surprised me, and I think surprised a number of other physical scientists, was one of the slides, or a couple of the slides in the middle of the presentation, which I fear may have been lost, but how a Fields medalist, in fact 2 of them, were talking about having discovered new and beautiful things in their mathematics, and they could well have been an artist speaking of discovering new and beautiful things in the world and bringing them to people's attention. And I was very struck by, in the early days of thinking about some of this, I was very struck by the fact that this was a a pure scientist speaking, a mathematician speaking, who is seen as a hard-edged scientist, and still had this sense of human creativity, which we think is really, really very important. That's it then, I think.
That's really interesting. Looks like there are. Carrie has some question. Carrie, please.
Right. Thanks for your talk. So, in regard to your posed idea of what would octopuses or dolphins or chimpanzees think if they looked at the same information, I guess there are projects out there trying to decipher the communication of different animals and see if we can interpret them in terms of English or human languages. But it seems to me the one unique thing between us and the other living species that we know of is that we write down information and pass it on, and we don't have to observe things and learn it from others. We can learn things from people we haven't observed. So, I mean, how do you interpret that idea in terms of your hypothetical game of soliciting interpretations from other species?
Well, I mean, at the moment, we don't know whether they pass things on. For example, we do know that way back in the 1960s, there were a series of, to our eyes now, astonishingly anthropomorphic experiments with dolphins, attempting to talk to dolphins in English. And you'll find all this in the various university records. We don't know. We know that other species can appear to talk to each other. We don't know what they're saying. That's an open question. I mean, taking the octopus, it's just so different to us, even though it's on this planet. It only lives, for example, for 3 years, compared with humans. 70 years, which is really quite astonishing. And
if I can just chip in here, I mean, it just seemed to me very interesting that, and it's an astronomical thing, people look up at the night sky, amateurs and us as well, and say, well, there must be other life forms out there. However, things like octopuses or dolphins have grown up on the same planet as ourselves over a similar time scale, side by side, and yet we have no comprehension of how they feel. And yet we look out into space, which is very, very different environment from Earth, and we sort of anticipate that there might be life forms out there with whom we could communicate. So the communication thing, I think, is really very different and fundamental. I'm sorry, I did interrupt.
No, you're right. I support that. Yes, but I just go back to this point. This might seem ivory tower stuff, but it's just such a big question. But ultimately, we're talking here about two worldviews, two Weltanschauungs. So there's no right answer. It might be that other species out there is another one, a third kind of worldview, which we know nothing whatsoever about. We just don't know.
Right, thanks. I think my question
I would recommend
writing down information, right? Like, so certainly other species communicate, but do they record information so that another member can learn it without direct interaction? That was kind of my question. Is there a potential analog between just young humans? This is not my area of study, but young human. I mean, a baby 1 year old will not reading and not using information independently that has been recorded, but it is observing the world around it and reacting. So that might be. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I guess that child is recording things in his or her own head. So that we psychologists believe that kind of thing is going on, and we have a kind of memory of that, and we know we're starting to learn about all that kind of thing. Whether other species do that, we don't know. But you're quite right that we're unaware that in physical terms we transcribe this onto some sort of corporeal medium. We see no evidence of that. I agree.
Yes, I would recommend looking at the Netflix film My Teacher, the Octopus, and reading Oxohul's Psychology of a Tick. I mean, in behavioral biology, we know very much more about animal thinking and about animal logic than what you try to communicate here. And that would be a beautiful interface between engineers and behavioral biologists, how to conceptualize thought and how to find common algorithms in exploring the world.
I agree. Indeed.
Can't disagree. I agree.
Yeah, I think Ram has given me some sort of instruction here to try to manage this discussion a little bit more. Have to look at how long it's supposed to go on. I suppose until, well, we may be at break now, but it looks until the next session at 1 o'clock Eastern. But I guess we can stay here if anybody has any thoughts or comments. I have seen the Octopus Teacher movie, so it is.
There have been a number of books published. There was one particular person, an Australian, who is a philosopher who has aqualung type diving, been diving with octopuses, and believes that they are sentient, they are self-aware, and of course they have long been known to, well, being going back to, I think it was Pliny in Roman times, he reckoned they were sly. They have a different kind of intelligence to ours, but it doesn't mean to say that they're not sentient or self-aware. And they do astonishing things if they take, if they're in a tank, say, and they take against a particular person who's looking after them, they can squirt them with water or squirt the light in the room. So there's a lot of information that is being built up. But what I'm conscious of is that with all of these discussions, that we all tend to look at things from our own perspective. It's like we're all of us, and I'm guilty of this as well. We are all, as a child with a hammer, will think everything is a nail, whereas the child with a screwdriver will think everything is a screw. And we're all in our mental cages, looking at the universe through iron bars, so to speak, and look at it in the way that we've been conditioned to look at it. And it's this kind of discussion is very refreshing because it mixes people up and helps us see other ways of looking at things.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments or questions to the speakers, to Malcolm and Steve? I think you're pointing out some of the difficulties of early on. You're mentioning economist viewpoints and viewpoints of climate change versus saving wealth and saving species. And some people see the key as to make humans realize that other species are sentient, and given what we know about them, I'm not sure whether there are other approaches that don't involve caring for other species, but certainly a lot of discussion on that. So I'll leave you with that comment, and then maybe let people see if you have anything else, and let us go to maybe a break until the breakout sessions that are to start in 12 minutes now from now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the great talk. I guess we're on break time until the next set of breakout sessions, dual sessions, T01 and T02, which, if I'm recalling from Ram's previous emails, are via a separate Zoom link, I think. So
That's what I was going to ask. How do we, where are these different breakout? How do we go to one or the other?
Right, I'm flying blind a little bit here, given this responsibility, so I'll just stay on. And if anybody is looking, I'm gonna look for the answer. And if anybody else has the answer, please chime in terms of accessing the next talks. So I think I've saved it, and I'm looking for that.
I don't
that
think I
type of
saw any
information.
email giving me separate ones. But
Maybe we can take a break for now, Kerry. What do you think? And we'll resume it maybe.
oh,
5 minutes.
Rom,
Rom.
how do we go from one session to another and back and forth?
Yeah, I was gonna try to, yeah, and
Actually, these are the two separate Zoom link. One, I can share that here, and I think you have to do manually switch between these two, whichever you wanted like to join.
But where did you send us those Zoom links?
I think I did. Otherwise, I'm gonna put that in the chat if that's okay with you. Is that okay? Okay, let me send you that one right away.
Excuse me, this is Gregory Yablonsky. May I ask you a question?
Please, we want to continue conversation if there are any.
yes, Gregory, go ahead.
First of all, I have my talk in 1 hour, correct? In something like 1:20 p.m. It's T01. T.
Is this Gregory?
Yes,
Yes, you have a talk in 20 minutes, like about 20 minutes.
in 20 minutes because it's time. Okay, how to go from one from this Zoom? I have it, but do I need to share my screen? Correct?
Yes, like you will continue to on this channel. Like this is the channel for like T1.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
whenever Dennis finishes his talk, then I'll call you and you start sharing your slides and can go from there. Very good.
What does mean you call me? I stay on this channel, correct? Nothing more.
Sorry?
I stay on this channel. I stay in this
You
channel.
stay, you stay, this is your channel.
But you told you call me. I just stay. on
Yeah,
channel.
just stay and like about like 1:19 after your previous speaker is done, then I'll call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I promise this, Gary, I sent you what I think are the links that you had in an email, so I don't know if,
Yeah, if you can do that, that'll be great.
because
Gary-
Rajendra is also claiming to have sent something, but not yet. So I'll paste what I had.
Yeah, please
That's-
do
yeah.
that for all groups. Yeah,
I see. Oh, so sorry. Yeah.
the second one.
Yeah. This is as you had it labeled. So,
Okay, I see that.
so to everyone, there's seems to be these two links. If you want the odd numbers session, you use the current Zoom you're on, stay here. And if you want the even number, then you go to the other link.
All right.